'89 GT-18. .44-inch deck, runs and cuts. 75 bucks, Craigslist. Was doing good for the first couple of days, didn't have to do anything really to it. Doing an oil change right now, but it was running fine, and then I think I found out why he got rid of it. This engine had to be taken off 2 days ago, and it needed an ignition coil. It was weird. The one day I was cutting with it, and it was running well, but then it got it hot. The heads actually were pretty dirty. There was a lot of dirt behind those shields, especially on the sides, and there was no air getting through there. And that's bad news for one of these engines. So it started to run really weird. It wouldn't accelerate when you change the speed at all. Mostly if you went up like that much, like really hit it to go faster and go up a hill or something, the whole engine would just shake back and forth, and it's like it wasn't advancing. It's like if you had a distributor on a car or something, you know, and if you had it too far back and it wasn't advanced enough, yeah, it was kind of like that. It wasn't really making any power, and it was like almost like it was running on one cylinder, but it was really intermittent. So I was chasing the problem, thought it was a carburetor. Carb was getting plenty of gas. It just wasn't running right. So the last thing I could do, I already done the spark plugs, all the simple stuff, was change the ignition coil. I went in there, tore the engine off. It's what you got to do with these things. I love these tractors, but when it comes to that stuff, it's kind of a bear, because when you want to work the ignition, when you want to work on the starter, engine's got to come out, or at least bring it up and on top, unbolt it and put it on top of the frame, and so you can work on it. It's got to come out. Get out of here, puppy. Well, the initial problem was it wouldn't start for the guy, so we got rid of it cheap. For this reason, this holder is burned, like inside where it catches on the two prongs of this of the fuse. That was an easy fix. It wouldn't start. You couldn't get the PTO clutch to engage, and it wouldn't charge. So that was easy. I put another fuse in there and clean up the connectors. I think it's going to be alright. But he probably figured once you get it running again, it would still run like shit, because that ignition coil was never going to work right again. It was cooked. I also had a very weak spark, so that had to be done. That should be good. Try not to overfill these, because they're really sensitive about that. A little too much oil and they start to burn off. I really like these engines. They're just so reliable, and they run well, and generally speaking they just go and go. They don't really have any problems. You take care of them, it's like anything else, it'll just keep going. The only thing I can think about these is that they're really hogs. They really use a lot of gas, well, to today's standards. But I'll take that trade-off. They're just going to keep running, then in the long run, to me, that's better than anything else. When I bought it from this guy that sold it to me, he didn't have any air cleaner on here. It was just, there was no top cover, there was no thing here, there was no air cleaner itself. It was just the base, and it was all dirty. I'm thinking he was running it without an air cleaner for a while, which kind of sucks. I didn't ask him about it because the thing was so cheap overall. I wasn't going to give him any gripe. Wasn't going to gripe about it. I wasn't going to give him any grief, because he brought it here. I don't have my truck right now, so it's down at the garage, so I couldn't transport it. He brought it to me for like $15 more. So I was worried about that. And it uses a little bit of oil, but it really isn't that bad. All these engines use oil. These things just have noisy valves and have valve guides that are leaky. I think that's where it's coming from. A little bit of smoke when you hit the throttle. What I was really happy about is that I got 160 psi in both holes, and that compression came right up on the gauge, so it's still healthy. At least it has good rings and cylinders, and it runs really well. Some steering problems. Only that way though. Now, technically, I bought this thing because the guy said he had a plow hooked up to it somehow here. I'm thinking it's a lot different than my setup. I have a plow setup for a vertical shaft. Craftsman, Roper, Yard Pro, whatever, all the same. But it doesn't have this bracket, it's different. It looks similar as far as the frame goes with the plow deal itself, but this hookup I know is going to be different. So I got something else to find. I do have that piece now, which is helpful I guess, but I thought the guy had more to it, but ends up he brings me no plow, no control arm, no bracket, and just says that somehow it hooked up there, and that was a previous owner, so I'm the third or fourth owner, who knows, but he couldn't tell me much about it. So that's how that is. And this is the plow I've had for a long time. It's AYP, Agrifab made, but I'm not sure. I don't think that's going to work with what I have right now. My pieces went missing to the vertical shaft years ago, so I don't know what I can really use off of this for one of those, or my Y2050 that I have in another video, very similar to this, almost the same. That's how that is. I'd like to have a plow on one of these one day. I do have a plow tractor, but I don't know, it'd be cool to use this. It's just laying around. Then I have this other one. I think that's all the simplicity, but that's a different thing. Yeah, I just really like these tractors. I know there's better stuff out there. A lot of people knock the Craftsman stuff, but the Roper, when things were made by Roper, and even when it was AYP's hands, I think they did a good job. They made a pretty decent product. Now anymore, I don't have much faith in it. They stopped making the old transmission. Everything's vertical shaft now, and stuff just isn't made as well, I think, overall. Now it's done by Husqvarna, I think. And the great thing about these is there's parts everywhere. Parts, everywhere you go. eBay, junkyards, this is a very common machine. Rock and roll.